Act I. The reckoning and the flight, the moon tax deadline. The harvest moon rose blood red over the southern packed territory, and with it came the dreaded reckoning. I pressed myself against the wall of our small cottage, listening to Beta Rorik's guards moving through the village, collecting the moon tax from every household. The tax that had bled our pack dry for the past 5 years. The tax that had taken my mother's jewelry, my father's tools, and finally, last year, our home itself. Now we had nothing left to give. Nothing except me. Elara Ashford. The voice boomed from outside, and I felt my father's hand grip mine in desperate, silent apology. Your family's moon tax stands at 40 silver marks. Present payment or present collateral? Collateral. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. I knew what it meant. Omegas who couldn't pay were taken to serve in Beta Rorik's household. Some returned after their debt was worked off. Most didn't return at all. My father stood slowly, his back bent from years of labor that barely kept us fed. Beta Rorik, please. We need more time. Just one more harvest. The moon tax doesn't wait for harvest, Carpenter. Rorik's voice was smooth, cultured, and absolutely merciless. The harvest moon rises tonight. Payment is due tonight. Your family has 40 silver marks of debt. I'll take the Omega daughter in exchange. Through the window, I could see him. Tall, refined, his dark hair perfectly groomed, his clothes expensive enough to feed our family for months. Beta Rorik wasn't just cruel. He was cruel with style, with calculation, with the kind of casual brutality that came from never having been denied anything in his entire life. She's my only child, my father pleaded, and I hated hearing the desperation in his voice. Please, there must be another way. There is. Rorik's smile was sharp. 40 silver marks by midnight, or the Omega comes with me. Those are your options. He knew we didn't have 40 silver marks. Knew we'd never have that kind of money. This wasn't about taxation. It was about power. About reminding everyone in the Southern Pack that Beta Rorik controlled everything, including us. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning my escape for weeks. I had a third option, one so dangerous, so insane, that no sane Omega would even consider it. But I wasn't feeling particularly sane as I watched Beta Rorik's guards surround our cottage, cutting off any normal escape route. I was going to run, not within pack territory, where Rorik's influence was absolute, but beyond it, into the one place even Beta Rorik feared to follow. The territory of the apex Alpha Kaelen, ruler of the mountain pack. The wolf who killed trespassers without question. The Alpha King who'd been unmated for a decade and preferred isolation to company. If the legend were true, I'd die the moment I crossed into his territory. But at least I'd die free. The secret and the scrape. I'd always been good at reading emotions. Not mind reading, exactly, but something close. I could sense intent, feel the undercurrents of what people were really thinking beneath their words. It was a rare Omega gift, one I kept carefully hidden, because gifts like mine attracted the wrong kind of attention. Right now, I used that gift to sense the guards' positions, their patterns, the brief moment when their attention would shift. I need to use the privy, I said quietly to my father, before they take me. My father's eyes met mine, and I saw understanding there. He knew I was planning something desperate. But he didn't stop me, because what alternative did we have? Be quick, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I slipped out the back door, past the privy, through the vegetable garden, and into the tree line before the guards even realized I'd moved. My Omega status meant I wasn't considered a flight risk. Who would run from Beta Rorik when running meant certain death? Someone desperate enough to choose death over servitude. I ran to the forest I'd known since childhood, following paths I'd memorized during weeks of secret planning. I carried nothing but the clothes on my back and a small knife, not for defense, but for cutting through undergrowth. Behind me, I heard shouts. The guards had discovered my absence. Good. Let them waste time searching pack territory, while I did the unthinkable. The border between southern pack and mountain pack territory was marked by ancient stone pillars, carved with warnings in the old tongue. I couldn't read the symbols, but I didn't need to. Everyone knew what they meant. Trespassers die. No exceptions. Turn back or face the Apex Alpha's wrath. I crossed the border without hesitation. The temperature dropped immediately. The air became thinner, colder, carrying the scent of pine and snow and something else. Pure, undiluted alpha power that made my omega instinct scream warnings. This was claimed territory, protected territory, sacred territory, and I just violated it. I pushed deeper into the mountains, following a narrow game trail that wound upward through increasingly hostile terrain. My lungs burned, my legs ached, and then I slipped. The loose rock gave way beneath my feet, sending me sliding down a steep embankment. I tried to catch myself, but my hand scraped against sharp stone, tearing skin, leaving a burning trail of pain up my right arm. I landed at the bottom of the ravine, breathless and bleeding, my arm screaming with pain. The scrape was deep, already swelling, and I could feel the beginning of infection setting in. Mountain stone was notorious for that. Rough, embedded with minerals that poison wounds if not properly treated. But I couldn't stop. Behind me, I could hear the distant sound pursuit. Beta Rorik wouldn't let me escape easily, border or no border. He'd risk the Apex Alpha's wrath to retrieve me, because I knew something he couldn't afford for me to share. I knew the moon tax was a lie, the den discovery. I stumbled through the darkening forest for another hour before I found it, a cave carved into mountainside, partially concealed by overhanging rock and thick vegetation. Not a natural cave, I realized as I approached. This had been deliberately created, shaped by claws and strength into a hunting den. The entrance was small, barely large enough for a human to squeeze through, but inside it opened into a larger space. I crawled inside, my injured arm protesting every movement, and collapsed on a surprisingly smooth floor. I crawled inside, my injured arm protesting every movement, and collapsed on a surprisingly smooth floor. The den smelled overwhelmingly of wolf. Not the familiar pack scent I'd grown up with, but something wilder, stronger. Alpha power so concentrated it was almost visible, making the air thick and heavy. And underneath that, something else. Something that made my omega instincts go quiet for the first time since I'd started running. Safety, which made no sense. This was the Apex Alpha's territory. I should feel terrified, not safe. But my instincts didn't lie, and right now they were telling me this place, this den, was sanctuary. I managed to tear a strip from my shirt and wrap my injured arm, though the makeshift bandage did little to stop the burning pain. Infection was definitely setting in. I'd need proper treatment soon, or the wound would fester. But first, I needed rest. Just a few hours. Just until dawn, and then I'd move on. Find somewhere more permanent to hide. Figure out how to survive in territory that killed trespassers. I closed my eyes, exhaustion pulling me under despite the pain and fear. I don't know how long I slept. Minutes? Hours? But I woke to the sound that haunted my nightmares since childhood. The heavy tread of an alpha in wolf form, moving with predatory certainty. I froze, every muscle locked, my breath stopping my throat. The footsteps were right outside the den. Close. Getting closer. A massive head pushed through the entrance, and I found myself staring into the golden eyes of the largest wolf I'd ever seen. Black fur, silver at the muzzle and ears, with scars crisscrossing his face and shoulders. Battle scars. Survival scars. The marks of a wolf who'd earned his position through blood and strength. The apex alpha Kaelen. He'd found me instantly. Of course he had. This was his territory, his den. I'd been a fool to think I could hide from him. The wolf shifted, and a man emerged, tall, powerfully built, with black hair falling past his shoulders and those same golden eyes that seemed to see straight through to my soul. He wore simple leather pants and nothing else, revealing a torso covered in scars that told a story of violence and survival. He was terrifying, magnificent, absolutely beyond anything I had prepared for. "Who are you?" he said, his voice like grinding stone. "And why are you dying in my den?" It wasn't a question. It was a command for truth, backed by alpha authority that made lying impossible. "Elara," I gasped, my voice weak from pain and exhaustion. "Elara Ashford, from the Southern Pack. I'm running from Beta Rorik. The moon tax. I couldn't pay. I couldn't. I tried to stand, to show respect, to do something other than cower like a terrified Omega. But my legs gave out, and I would have collapsed if he hadn't moved, faster than should have been possible, to catch me. His hand wrapped around my injured arm to steady me, and the world exploded. Act 2. The fated bond and the decision, first encounter and the touch. The moment Kaelen's skin touched mine, everything changed. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't the romantic, slow-building connection I'd read about in stories. It was violent, overwhelming, a cosmic force slamming into both of us with the inevitability of lightning seeking ground. The mate bond blazed a light between us, connected my soul to his with absolute, undeniable certainty. I felt him, his shock, his rage, his desperate denial, and underneath it all, a loneliness so profound it made my heart ache. And he felt me, my fear, my pain, my desperate hope, and the secret I'd been carrying, the knowledge about the moon tax that made me dangerous to Beta Rorik. We both staggered back, breaking contact, but the damage was done. The bond had formed, permanent and unbreakable, tying the lowest Omega in the Southern Pack to most powerful Alpha in the entire region. "No," Kaelen said, his voice carrying absolute denial. "No, this can't be." He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Shock, yes, but also something that looked like betrayal, as if I deliberately tricked him into this bond. "I didn't know," I said quickly, my voice shaking. "I swear I had no idea. I just needed to hide, to escape. I didn't know this was your den, didn't know you were my mate." The word came out like a curse. "You're my fated mate, an Omega trespasser from a rival pack, who's brought her problems directly into my territory." He turned away from me, his hands clenched into fists, every muscle in his back tense with barely controlled emotion. Through the bond, I felt his internal war, the mate instinct demanding he protect me, claim me, keep me safe at any cost, warring with years of carefully maintained isolation and a deep, visceral fear of the vulnerability the mate bond represented. "The bond is a weakness," he said, more to himself than to me. "It makes alphas foolish, makes them risk everything for one person. I've seen it destroy stronger wolves than me. I won't, I can't." "Then reject me." The words came out before I could stop them, sharp and bitter. "If the bond is such a curse, if I'm such a burden, Then do it now. Reject me and send me back to Beta Rorik. At least that death would be quick. He spun to face me, his golden eyes blazing. You think I'd send my mate to her death? What kind of monster do you think I am? The kind the legends describe. The apex alpha who kills trespassers. The unmated king who spent a decade alone because he prefers solitude to company. You said it yourself. The bond is a weakness, so reject it. Reject me. Set us both free. For a long moment, we stare at each other, the mate bond humming between us with desperate intensity. I could feel his conflict, feel the part of him that wanted to do exactly what I'd suggested. Sever the bond, send me away, return to his isolation. But I could also feel something else. A longing so deep he'd buried it beneath years of denial. A hope he'd given up on long ago, suddenly reignited by the cosmic joke of finding his fated mate in the last place he'd expected. I can't, he finally said, his voice rough. The bond won't let me. Even if I wanted to reject you, which I'm not saying I do, I physically can't. The moment I touched you, the moment the bond formed, you became mine to protect. That's not negotiable. He moved closer, studying my injured arm with a frown. You're infected. Mountain stone poison, if left untreated. It'll reach your heart by morning. His fingers hovered over my wound, not quite touching, as if he was afraid to make contact again. I need to treat this. It's going to hurt. Everything hurts already, I said quietly. What's a little more pain? His expression softened slightly. The first crack in his armor. You're braver than you look, little Omega. I had to be. Where I come from, Omegas who aren't brave don't survive. He pulled out supplies from a hidden cache in the den. Clean water, herbs, bandages. As he began cleaning my wound with efficient, surprisingly gentle movements, I felt the bond pulse with warmth. This was what mates did. They tended each other's wounds, offered comfort, provided care. And despite everything, despite the insanity of the situation, despite not knowing if I'd survive the night, I felt safe for the first time in years. Denial in the pack's approach. Kaelen had just finished bandaging my arm when his entire body went rigid, his head turning toward the den entrance with predatory focus. We have company, he said grimly. Your Beta and his hunting party. They've crossed into my territory. Through the bond, I felt his rage, cold, calculated, and absolutely lethal. Beta Rorik had violated sacred pack law by crossing borders without permission. That was an act of war, and Kaelen had every right to kill them for the transgression. He's here for me, I said, fear making my voice shake. He knows I know too much. He can't let me live to tell what I know about the moon tax. What you know? Kaelen's eyes fixed on mine, sharp and assessing. What secret is worth starting a border war over? The moon tax isn't what he claims, I said quickly, urgency overriding caution. It's not pack taxation. It's tribute. Rorik's been collecting from us for years and sending it somewhere else. To someone else. I overheard him one night, talking to a stranger about the arrangement, about keeping his position secure in exchange for regular payments. Kaelen's expression darkened. He's in league with rogues. Or worse. I don't know who he's paying, but I know he'd rather kill me than let me expose him. That's why he pursued me across the border. He's desperate. A howl echoed through the night, Beta Rorik's voice, demanding response, demanding I be returned. Kaelen stood, his alpha power radiating outward in waves that made the air thick and heavy. Stay here. Don't leave this den for any reason. Do you understand? What are you going to do? What I should have done years ago. His smile was sharp, dangerous. Remind Beta Rourke exactly who rules these mountains. He shifted mid-stride, his massive black wolf emerging with fluid grace, and disappeared into the night. I sat alone in the den, listening to the sounds of confrontation outside. Growls, snarls, the clash of dominance between Alpha and Beta. Through the bond, I felt Kaelen's absolute control, his cold fury, his determination to protect what was his. Even if he hadn't fully accepted that I was his. Even if he still saw the mate bond as a weakness rather than strength. He was protecting me anyway. The Alpha's choice. Kaelen returned an hour later, still in wolf form, with blood on his muzzle that wasn't his own. He shifted back to human, and I saw new cuts across his shoulders. Beta Rourke hadn't come quietly. "He's alive," Kaelen said, reading the question in my eyes. "Barely. I could have killed him for the border violation. But I wanted answers first. Want to know why a Beta would risk war over one Omega. What did he say? That you're his property. That the moon tax debt makes you his legal collateral. That pack law gives him the right to retrieve you regardless of borders." Kaelen's expression was grim. "He's technically correct. If I keep you without formally claiming you or paying your debt, it's theft. He could take the issue to the regional council." My heart sank. "So you have to give me back." "I didn't say that." He moved closer, and I could see the internal struggle playing out in his golden eyes. "I said he has a legal claim, but there are ways to supersede that claim. Pack law recognizes certain bonds as absolute, taking precedence over all debt and obligation. The mate bond," I whispered. "Yes, if I publicly claim you as my fated mate, your debt becomes irrelevant. You be under my protection, par my pack, and Beta Rourke would have no legal standing to take you back." Hope flared in my chest, quickly followed by dread. "But you don't want to claim me. You said the bond is a weakness." "I said it makes Alphas vulnerable." He crouched in front of me, bringing his face level with mine. "I didn't say I was willing to let my mate be dragged back to servitude, because I'm afraid of vulnerability." Through the bond, I felt his decision crystallizing. He was choosing me, choosing to accept the mate bond, to publicly claim me, to risk everything he'd built his isolation to protect. "This will start a war," I said quietly. "Rourke won't accept losing his leverage. And if what I suspect is true, if he's been paying tribute to maintain his position, his benefactors won't be happy about losing their source of income. Let them be unhappy." Kaelen's smile was sharp, dangerous. "I'm the apex alpha. I didn't earn that title by backing down from threats. Rourke can bring his war. I'll crush it in him, and anyone else foolish enough to challenge my claim." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and touched my face gently. The mate bond flared with warmth, with rightness, with the cosmic certainty that despite how we'd met, despite the chaos and danger, we belonged together. "You are now under my protection, Elara Ashford," he said formally, the words carrying the weight of pack law. "You are mine, my mate, my responsibility, my future queen. And anyone who tries to take you from me will learn exactly why I'm called Apex." His eyes held mine. "But know this, I protect what is mine, and I don't share." The words should have been threatening. Instead, through the bond, I felt the truth beneath them. Not possession, but devotion. Not control, but commitment. He was claiming me not as property, but as partner. And suddenly, the impossible escape, the desperate flight, the insane gamble of crossing into killer territory, all of it made sense. The moon goddess had guided me here. To him, to safety disguised as danger, to the one wolf in all the territories who could protect me from Beta Rorik's machinations. I accept your claim. I said formally the ancient Omega words of acceptance. I bind myself to you, Alpha Kaelen, as mate and companion. The bond between us blazed bright, sealing the formal claim, making it official in ways that transcended mere words. I was no longer a runaway Omega. I was the Apex Alpha's fated mate, and Beta Rorik had just made a very powerful enemy. Act 3. The confrontation and the hidden truth the border face OFF. Dawn broke cold and clear over the mountain border, and Kaelen brought me to witness what he called the formal response. Beta Rorik stood on the southern pack side of the border stones, flanked by a dozen warriors who looked nervous to be this deep in mountain pack territory. Rorik himself showed no fear. His dark eyes were cold, calculating, fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Alpha Kaelen, Rorik said with false courtesy, I appreciate you agreeing to this parley. I've come to retrieve my property, the Omega who fled her legitimate debt. You have no property here, Kaelen replied, his voice carrying absolute authority. Only trespassers who violated my borders and will be fortunate to leave with their lives. Pack law grants me the right of retrieval for collateral debt. Pack law recognizes the primacy of the fated mate bond over all other claims. Kaelen moved forward, placing himself between me and Rorik. Elara Ashford is my fated mate, publicly claimed and accepted. Your moon tax debt is void. Your claim is void, and your presence on my territory is an act of war I'm prepared to answer with extreme force. Rorik's mask of civility cracked slightly. You'd risk a territorial war over one Omega? Over a wolf who's worth 40 silver marks of debt and nothing more. I'd risk any amount of destruction to protect my mate, Kaelen said simply. That's what real alphas do, Beta. Perhaps if you understood that, you wouldn't need to steal from your own pack to maintain your position. Rorik went very still. What did you say? Oh, did you think she hadn't told me? Kaelen's smile was sharp. Elara knows about your arrangement. The moon tax that isn't really a tax. The tribute you've been sending to external forces. The deal you made to secure your beta position by bleeding your own pack dry. Through the bond, I felt Kaelen's cold satisfaction as he watched Rorik's composure crack completely. You have no proof, Rorik said, but his voice had lost its confidence. I have my mate's testimony. I have your desperate pursuit across borders. And I have the regional council's attention, because I've already sent word about your suspicious taxation practices. Kaelen's eyes glinted with deadly intent. Try to take her, Beta. Give me an excuse to end you here and now, so I can help your pack find leadership that actually serves their interests. For a long moment, the two wolves faced off across the border, the tension so thick it felt like the air might shatter. Then Rorik stepped back, his expression twisted with rage and frustration. This isn't over, Alpha Kaelen. You may have claimed her, but you don't know what forces you're challenging. The moon tax serves a purpose beyond your understanding. Without it, protection is withdrawn, and when that protection fails... He smiled coldly. We'll see how long your mate survives what comes next. He turned and left, his warriors following, leaving behind a threat that made my blood run cold. What did he mean? I asked quietly. What protection? Kaelen's expression was grim. I don't know, but we're going to find out. The moon tax reveal. Back at Kaelen's fortress, a massive stone structure built into mountainside, more defensible castle than simple pack house. I finally felt safe enough to tell him everything. We sat in his private study, a room lined with books and maps. with windows that looked out over the entire mountain range. He'd given me clean clothes, proper medical treatment for my wound, and the first real meal I'd had in days. "Tell me about the moon tax," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "Everything you know." I took a deep breath. It started 5 years ago. Beta Roar convinced the pack Alpha, who was old and weak by then, that we needed to implement a mandatory tax for protection and prosperity. Every household pays based on their means. Omegas pay through service if they can't pay in coin. Protection from what? That's what I wanted to know. Our pack isn't wealthy, but we're not poor either. We have good hunting grounds, clean water, strong wolves. Why did we suddenly need protection? I met his eyes, so I started watching, listening, using my gift to sense what people weren't saying. Your gift? I hesitated, then decided trust had to go both ways. I can sense emotions, not mind reading, but emotional truth. I know when people are lying, what they're really feeling beneath their words. It's rare for Omegas, and I've kept it hidden because gifts like that make you valuable to the wrong people. Kaelen finished, understanding immediately. Smart. I used it to track Beta Rorik. And one night, 3 months ago, I sensed a meeting with someone in secret. I couldn't see who. They stayed in shadows, but I heard enough. I closed my eyes, remembering that terrifying night. Rorik was making a payment. A huge sum, all the moon tax money collected that month. And the stranger said, "Your tribute buys you another season of peace. But remember, Beta, the protection we offer can always be withdrawn. Keep your pack in line, keep the payments coming, and we'll ensure no rival pack moves against you." Kaelen's expression darkened. He's been paying protection money to rogues. Or worse, to an organized criminal faction. That's what I think. And I think he schemes a portion for himself, which is why he lives so well while the pack starves. But if the payments stop... I shuddered. Whatever forces he's been paying will turn on the southern pack. Innocent wolves will suffer for Rorik's corruption, which is why he's so desperate to silence you. If his pack learns the truth, they'll tear him apart. And if his benefactors learn he's been exposed, they'll cut him loose. Kaelen stood, pacing with predatory energy. This is bigger than one corrupt beta. This is organized crime infiltrating pack territories. The regional council needs to know. Will they believe me? I'm just an Omega with no proof beyond what I overheard. They'll believe me when I tell them, and they'll investigate when I demand it. He turned to me, his expression serious. But Elara, this makes you more than just a runaway Omega. This makes you a witness to corruption at the highest levels. Rorik will do anything to silence you. The forces he works will do worse. I know. I met his eyes steadily. But I couldn't let my pack keep suffering. Even if it cost me everything, at least the truth will be known. Kaelen moved to kneel in front of me, taking my hands gently. Through the bond, I felt his fierce pride, his respect for my courage, his determination to keep me safe. "It won't cost you everything," he said firmly, "because I won't let them touch you. Not Rorik, not his criminal allies, not anyone. You're my mate and I protect what's mine." Kaelen's vulnerability. Later that evening, as Kaelen changed the bandages on my still healing wound, I dared to ask the question that had been haunting me. Why have you been unmated for so long? The legends say you chose isolation, but through the bond I can feel it wasn't really choice, was it? His hand still on the bandage, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he sighed, his golden eyes meeting mine with unexpected vulnerability. "I was mated before," he said quietly, 10 years ago. Her name was Seraphina. She wasn't my fated mate. We chose each other, built a partnership, prepared to rule together. He resumed wrapping my arm, his movements gentle despite the tension in his voice. I thought I loved her. I thought she loved me. But what she actually loved was the power that came with being the apex alpha's mate. The influence, the authority, the wealth. What happened? I was challenged by a rival alpha. A serious challenge, one that could have ended in my death. I expected Seraphina to stand beside me, to support me through the fight. His smile was bitter. Instead, she'd been secretly negotiating with my challenger, promising her loyalty and her body if he won. She saw me as a resource to be exploited, and when a better resource presented itself, she switched sides without hesitation. I felt my heart ache for him. But you survived the challenge. I did, and I banished her for her betrayal. But the damage was done. I learned that bonds not decreed by fate are fragile, that chosen partnerships can be unmade as easily as they're made. So I decided never to mate again. Better to rule alone than to risk that kind of betrayal a second time. He finished with a bandage and sat back, his expression haunted. The mate bond terrifies me, Elara, not because of the vulnerability. I can handle that, but because it's not my choice. The moon goddess decided you're mine, and I have no say in whether you'll love me for who I am or for what I can give you. I reached out slowly, cupping his scarred face in my hands, let him feel through the bond the absolute sincerity of my emotions. I didn't choose to flee into your territory because you're the apex alpha. I came here because it was the only place Beta Rorik might not follow. I didn't know who you were, didn't know about your power or your position. I held his gaze. But I know now, and what I see isn't just an alpha king. I see a wolf who's been hurt, who's learned to protect himself through isolation, who's terrified of being used again. I see someone who's been alone for so long he's forgotten what it means to be truly seen. I leaned forward, resting my forehead against his. The mate bond didn't give us a choice about being connected, but we have a choice about what we do with that connection. I choose to see you, Kaelen. All of you. The scars, the fears, the loneliness you hide behind strength. And I choose to stay, not because you're powerful, but because you're mine. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me close, and through the bond one felt his armor finally crack. The emotions he'd been holding back, fear, hope, desperate longing, flooded through, and I held him as he held me, two wounded souls finding unexpected healing in each other. I don't know how to do this, he whispered against my hair. How to be mated, how to let someone in, how to trust that you won't. Betray you? Use you? Leave when something better comes along. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. You don't know because Seraphina never taught you what real partnership looks like. But we can learn together. We can build something real, not based on power or position, but on actually seeing each other. He kissed me then, gentle at first, questioning, as if asking permission. I kissed him back, and the mate bond blazed between us with approval, with rightness, with the cosmic certainty that this was what we were meant to be. Two broken wolves, finding strength in vulnerability, building trust through truth, creating something unbreakable from shattered pieces. Act 4. The second chapter and the claim to trap and to rescue. 3 days later, I was helping in the fortress gardens, a small gesture toward earning my keep, when my Omega gift screamed warning. Danger. Close. Immediate. I spun, searching for the threat, but saw nothing. The garden was empty, except for me and 2 of Kaelen's guards stationed at the entrance. Then I felt it through the bond, Kaelen's sudden alarm, his rage, his desperate command. Stay inside. Don't move. But it was too late. The arrow came from nowhere, whistling through the air with a hiss of poison on its tip. I threw myself sideways, but it still caught my shoulder, burning with silver and something worse. Wolfsbane extract designed to kill a shifter in minutes. I hit the ground hard, the poison already spreading, my vision going dark at the edges. Through the fading consciousness, I heard screams, the clash of combat. Kaelen's roar pure fury as he tore through his own fortress to reach me. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was Beta Rorik stepping out from behind garden wall, a satisfied smile on his face. I woke to find myself in Kaelen's arms, his face pale with terror, his hands pressed my wound, trying desperately to stop the bleeding. Around us, his guards had subdued 3 attackers, hired assassins, not pack wolves, confirming that Rorik had enlisted outside help for this assault. But none of that mattered because I could feel the poison spreading, could sense my body shutting down system by system, and I knew with terrible certainty that normal healing wouldn't be fast enough, which meant I had one option, one secret power I'd hidden my entire life, terrified of what would happen if anyone discovered it. Omegas weren't supposed to have strong gifts. We were meant to be submissive, weak, valued only for our ability to bear children and soothe packed tensions. But I'd been born different, born with healing power that went beyond normal Omega abilities. I'd never used it before, never dared, because healing power this strong in an Omega would make me a target for every Alpha who wanted to exploit such a gift. But if I didn't use it now, I would die. And through the bond, I could feel that my death would destroy Kaelen, would shatter the walls he'd so carefully rebuilt around his heart. I couldn't do that to him. Kaelen, I gasped, my voice barely audible. The wound, I can heal it, but you have to trust me. What are you talking about? You're dying. I'm a healer. The words came out in a rush. Not just empathy. True healing. I can purge the poison, seal the wound, but it's going to look intense. Don't stop me. Don't let anyone stop me. Promise. Through our bond, he felt my desperate sincerity, my certainty that this would work, and my terror what would come after if I survived. I promise, he said immediately. Do whatever you need to do. I've got you. I closed my eyes and reached deep inside myself, to the power I'd kept locked away for 23 years. The healing gift that had manifested when I was 10 and had terrified me so badly I'd buried it under layers of fear and denial. It answered immediately, surging up with eager intensity, as if it had been waiting all this time to be used. Golden white light exploded from my hands, wrapping around the arrow wound, diving deep into tissue to find and destroy the poison. I felt the wolfsbane burning away, the silver being expelled, the torn flesh knitting back together with impossible speed. The healing took minutes, but felt like hours. When it was done, when the last traces of poison had been purged and the wound had sealed to a pale scar, I collapsed back into Kaelen's arms, exhausted but alive. Around us, complete silence. Everyone staring. You're an Apex Omega, one of the guards breathed. Goddess above, she's an Apex Omega. I wanted to deny it, to hide again, but the truth was out. An Apex Omega, the rarest type, born once in a generation, possessing healing powers strong enough to cure mortal wounds, to save lives that should have been lost. Exactly the kind of Omega that powerful wolves would kill to possess. Through the bond, I felt Kaelen's shock, his awe, and underneath it all, fierce protective pride. "Clear the garden," he commanded. "Now. And if any of you breathe a word of what you just saw to anyone outside this pack, I'll personally tear your throat out." The guards scattered, dragging the unconscious assassins with them. Beta Rourke had vanished during the chaos, escaped to whatever hole he crawled out of. Kaelen pulled me closer, and I felt him trembling. "You saved yourself. Used a power you've been hiding your entire life to save yourself. Why?" "Because dying would have destroyed you," I said simply. "I felt it through the bond. Your fear, your desperation. I couldn't let you lose another mate to betrayal and violence, even if it meant exposing what I am. An Apex Omega made it to an Apex Alpha." He laughed, the sound shaky with relief and wonder. "The moon goddess has a sense of humor. Do you know what that makes us? A target for every power-hungry alpha in the region? That too. But it also makes us the strongest mated pair in generations. Unbreakable. Perfectly balanced." He pulled back to look at me, his golden eyes intense. "Your healing power doesn't make you weak, Elara. It makes you invaluable. It makes us invaluable together. The retaliation and justice." Kaelen's fury at the assassination attempt was cold, calculated, and absolutely terrifying to witness. He spent the next day interrogating the captured assassins, hired humans, I learned, paid in gold by a mysterious benefactor who provided them with silver arrows and wolfsbane poison specifically designed to kill wolves. "They don't know who hired them," Kaelen told me that evening, his jaw tight with frustration. "The payments came through dead drops. But the poison came from somewhere specific, a compound used by only one group, the Raven Circle. The name meant nothing to me, but I could sense through the bond that it meant everything to him. They're a criminal organization that's been spreading through the territories for years," he explained. "Protection rackets, illegal gambling, corruption of pack officials. The regional council has been trying to shut them down, but they're like shadows, impossible to pin down, always operating through intermediaries." "And you think Beta Rourke has been working for them?" "I'm certain of it. The moon tax was never about protection. It was tribute paid to the Raven Circle to keep them from targeting the Southern Pack. But Rourke wasn't just a victim of their extortion. He was profiting from it, taking a cut while his pack suffered." Kaelen's expression hardened. "And now he sent assassins after you using Raven Circle resources, which means they see you as a threat. Which means you're right. The moon tax scheme goes deeper than one corrupt beta." Over the next 2 days, Kaelen worked with terrifying efficiency. He contacted the regional council, presented evidence gathered from the captured assassins, and formally accused Beta Rourke of corruption, embezzlement, and attempted murder of an Apex Omega under royal protection. The council's response was swift and severe. They dispatched investigators to the Southern Pack, audited the moon tax records, and discovered exactly what I'd suspected: years of systematic theft, with most of the money being funneled to external forces while Rourke kept a generous percentage for himself. When confronted, Rourke tried to run, tried to escape to whatever protection the Raven Circle had promised him. But Kaelen had anticipated that, had stationed warriors at every border, had essentially locked down the entire Southern Pack territory until justice was served. They brought Rourke to the regional council in chains. I attended the hearing, standing beside Kaelen as his acknowledged mate and the primary witness to Rourke's crimes. The council chambers were filled with representatives from every major pack, all gathered to see the Beta who betrayed his own people for profit. Beta Rourke of the Southern Pack, the head counselor intoned. You stand accused of corruption, embezzlement, extortion, conspiracy with criminal organizations, and attempted murder of an Apex Omega. How do you answer these charges? Rourke's massive civility was completely gone now. He looked diminished, desperate, knowing his carefully constructed power was crumbling. The Raven Circle will protect me, they promised. The Raven Circle abandoned you the moment you became a liability, Kaelen said coldly. We raided your office, found your correspondence with them, including the message they sent 3 days ago terminating your arrangement and suggesting you take care of your Omega problem yourself. He threw a stack of papers on the council floor. They used you, Rourke, and when you failed to silence the witness to your corruption, they cut you loose. You have no protection, no leverage, no power, just consequences. The trial lasted 4 hours. The evidence was overwhelming. The testimony, mine and dozens of others from the Southern Pack who'd suffered under the moon tax, was damning. The council's verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Beta Rourke, the head counselor said gravely, you betrayed the fundamental trust between the pack official and his people. You have stolen from those you were sworn to protect. You have conspired with criminal elements against pack interests. And you have attempted to murder an Apex Omega in an effort to hide your crimes. The room fell silent as the counselor delivered the sentence. You are hereby stripped of your Beta rank, your pack membership, and your clan name. You are declared rogue, with no pack to claim you and no protection under pack law. You have 48 hours to leave regional council territory. After that, you are fair game for any pack that wishes to enact justice for your crimes. It was the harshest sentence possible, worse than execution, because it left Rourke vulnerable to every wolf he'd ever wronged, with no pack to defend him and no allies to shelter him. He was led away screaming threats and promises of revenge that rang hollow in the council chambers. As we left, Kaelen took my hand, and through the bond one felt a satisfaction. Justice has been served. Your pack will have new leadership, fair leadership. The moon tax is abolished, and Rourke will spend whatever remains of his life running from the consequences of his greed. What about the Raven Circle? I asked. They're still out there. They are, but now the regional council is actively investigating them. Your testimony gave them the opening they needed to justify a full crackdown. It won't be quick or easy, but will dismantle their operations one territory at a time. He pulled me closer. You did this, Elara. You exposed the corruption. You gave your pack a chance at a better future. And you did it knowing the personal cost, knowing it would make you a target. I couldn't let them keep suffering in silence, I said quietly, even if it cost me everything. It costs you nothing, Kaelen said firmly, because I'll make sure of it. You're the Apex Alpha's mate, an Apex Omega with royal protection. Anyone who comes after you comes through me first. And I promise you, no one will reach you. The final claim. 6 weeks later, the Mountain Pack gathered in their great hall for the formal mating ceremony. I stood before Kaelen in traditional Omega silks, white and gold, embroidered with symbols of healing and strength. My hair was adorned with mountain flowers, my throat bare and ready for the claiming mark. Kaelen wore alpha formal attire, black leather and silver, a crown of twisted metal that marked him as Apex. He looked every inch the powerful king, but when his eyes met mine, I saw only the wolf who'd learned to be vulnerable again, who'd chosen trust over fear. Elara Ashford, he said formally, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. You came to my territory as a frightened Omega fleeing persecution. You hid in my den, seeking only temporary shelter. But the moon goddess had other plans. He took my hands in his. You are my fated mate, chosen by forces beyond our control. But more than that, you're my partner, my equal, the one who saw past my scars and my walls to the lonely wolf beneath. You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's a foundation of true strength. Through the bond, I felt his love, his devotion, his absolute certainty that I was exactly what he needed, even when he tried to convince himself otherwise. I claim you, he said, the ancient alpha words that have been spoken for generations. Not as property, but as partner. Not as subordinate, but as equal. I claim you as my mate, my Luna and my queen, and I vow before the moon goddess in our pact that I will protect you, honor you, and stand beside you for as long as we both live. I felt tears forming as I spoke my own vows. I accept your claim, Alpha Kaelen. I bind myself to you not out of obligation or fear, but out of choice. I choose you, the scarred, lonely wolf who learned to trust again. I choose us, the impossible pairing that became unbreakable. And I vow before the moon goddess that I will stand beside you, heal your wounds, and remind you every day that you are not alone. He lowered his head to my throat, and his teeth gently pierced the sensitive skin, leaving the claiming mark that would identify me as his mate to every wolf in the territories. The pain was sharp but brief, immediately followed by the overwhelming sensation of the mate bond strengthening, deepening, becoming absolutely permanent. I was his. He was mine. Nothing would ever change that. When he pulled back, the mark on my throat glowed with power, not just alpha dominance, but the unique signature of an apex pairing. Apex Alpha and Apex Omega balanced perfectly, creating something stronger than either alone. The pack howled their approval, celebrating not just a mating but the beginning of a new era. Under Kaelen's rule and my guidance, the mountain pack would become known for more than just strength. We would be known for justice, for balance, for the revolutionary idea that power could be used to protect rather than exploit. That evening, alone in our chambers, Kaelen traced a claiming mark on my throat with gentle fingers. Any regrets? He asked quietly. About fleeing into my territory? About claiming me despite knowing the dangers? I thought about the moon tax, the desperate flight, the terror of crossing into killer territory. I thought about the pain of the assassination attempt, the exposure of my deepest secret, the target painted on my back by virtue of being an Apex Omega. And I thought about the alternative, servitude to Beta Rourke, a life of exploitation and abuse, dying slowly in a pack that saw me as collateral rather than a person. No regrets, I said firmly. The most dangerous risk led to the deepest safety. The impossible escape led to finding home. I fled to the Alpha's den expecting death, and instead I found life, real life, full and free and worth living. I pulled him down for a kiss, feeling the mate bond pulse with contentment. You once said the mate bond was a weakness. Do you still believe that? No. His smile was genuine, unguarded. I believe it's the greatest strength I've ever known. You make me better, Elara, stronger, more than I ever was alone. Good, I said, pulling him closer, because you're stuck with me now, Apex Alpha, for the rest of our very long lives. I can't think of a better fate, he murmured against my lips. And as the harvest moon rose over the mountains, no longer bringing terror but promise, the Apex Alpha and his Omega Queen began their reign together, proving that sometimes the most desperate flight leads exactly where you're meant to be. The end.
Crescent Moon, if you were Elara, would you have risked fleeing into killer territory or faced Beta Rorik's justice? Thought Balloon, do you think Kaelen should have rejected the mate bond to protect his heart, or was accepting it the right choice? Crossed Swords, what punishment would you have given Beta Rorik? Was exile too harsh or too lenient? Fire, would you want healing powers like Elara's, knowing it would make you a target? Comment your thoughts below. Thank you for listening. Purple Heart if you loved this story of escape, fated mates, and finding strength through vulnerability. Like to help others discover this romance. Subscribe for more full-length Werewolf audiobooks every week. Share your favorite moment in the comments.